The medical station floated in the darkness between stars, a small island of light in the endless void. Inside, Dr. Sarah Chen walked through the quiet corridors of the xenobiology ward. Her shift had started 6 hours ago, and she still had 4 more to go. The station served many different alien species, and tonight the ward was unusually quiet. Sarah stopped at observation window 7. Inside the room, a young Drakari girl sat beside a medical bed. The girl had scales that shimmered between green and blue, and small horns that curved back from her forehead. Her wings were folded tight against her back. She hadn't moved in 3 hours. The boy on the bed was her brother. Sarah could see the resemblance in their features, though his scales had lost their shine. Dark veins spread across his skin like cracks in glass. Cascade syndrome. Sarah had seen it before in Drakari patients. There was no cure. The disease attacked their genetic structure, breaking it down piece by piece until everything failed. Sarah checked her tablet. Theron, age 16 cycles. His sister Veskra, 12 cycles. They had come to the station 2 weeks ago hoping for a miracle. Sarah had done everything she could, but some diseases didn't care about hope. She entered the room quietly. Veskra didn't look up. "How is he?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. The monitors told her everything. Theron's vital signs were dropping. He had hours left, maybe less. "Sleeping," Veskra said. Her voice was soft, barely above a whisper. He said he was tired. Sarah pulled up a chair and sat down. She had learned that sometimes the best medicine was just being present. The other Drakari doctors on the station wouldn't come near this room. Their culture had strict rules about death and disease. Anyone touched by Cascade syndrome was considered marked for death. Even family members were supposed to keep their distance, but Veskra had refused. She had been declared an outcast by her own people for staying with her brother. Sarah had watched other Drakari in the station turn away when they saw the girl in the corridors. They wouldn't meet her eyes. To them, she was already dead too. "You should rest," Sarah said. "I can watch him." "No." Veskra's clawed hand held her brother's carefully. "I promised I wouldn't leave." Sarah understood. She had made a similar promise once, many years ago. She had broken it. Sometimes Sarah wondered if that was why she had become a doctor, working on a distant station far from Earth, running from old ghosts. The hours passed slowly. Sarah checked Theron's monitors, adjusted his medication to keep him comfortable, and sat with Veskra in the quiet. Around midnight station time, Veskra finally spoke again. "Will it hurt?" she asked. "At the end?" "No," Sarah promised. "He won't feel any pain. He'll just slip away like falling into a deeper sleep." Veskra nodded. Tears rolled down her scaled cheeks, glowing faintly blue in the dim light. Sarah had learned that Drakari tears were bioluminescent. Even their sadness carried light. At 3 in the morning, Theron's breathing changed. Sarah had heard that sound before. She moved to the bedside, checking the monitors, but she already knew. Veskra knew too. The girl stood holding her brother's hand with both of hers. "Theron," she whispered. "I'm here. I'm right here." The boy's eyes fluttered open for a moment. He looked at his sister and tried to smile. Then his eyes closed again. His breathing slowed more, and then stopped. The monitors went flat. Sarah reached over and silenced the alarms. The room fell into a heavy silence. Veskra didn't make a sound. She stood there holding her brother's hand, her whole body trembling. Sarah gave her time. Some moments couldn't be rushed. Finally, Veskra laid her brother's hand gently on his chest. She stepped back, her wings drooping. She looked so small in that moment, so young. Sarah's heart ached for her. "What happens now?" Veskra asked. Sarah hesitated. She knew the protocol. Cascade syndrome victims had to be incinerated immediately. Station regulations were clear. The disease might be contained to Drakari biology, but no one wanted to take chances. Theron's body would be taken to the disposal chutes and burned. No ceremony, no burial. Just ashes scattered into space. "The station has procedures," Sarah started. "I know the procedures," Veskra interrupted. Her voice was stronger now, harder. "They will burn him. They will erase him like he never existed, like he was garbage." "I'm sorry," Sarah said, and she meant it. Veskra turned to face her. The girl's eyes were fierce despite her tears. "My people have burial rites. We return our dead to stone and sky. We place them in the earth of our world under the open air, so their spirits can return to the first dragon. But they won't let me take him home. They won't even let him have a grave." Sarah felt something twist in her chest. She remembered another hospital room, another goodbye she had been denied. Her brother David taken by cancer when Sarah was 15. By the time she had arrived at the hospital, it was already over. She never got to say goodbye. Never got to be there at the end. Please, Veskra said, and now her voice broke. Please, human doctor. You are the only one who stayed with us. The only one who treated him like he mattered. Will you help me bury him with honor? I know I have no right to ask. I have nothing to offer you, but please. Sarah looked at the young Drakari girl. She looked at Theron lying peaceful on the bed. She thought about rules and regulations and proper procedures. She thought about her brother David, whose ashes sat in an urn at her parents' house because Sarah had never been able to face scattering them. She thought about what it meant to be human, what it meant to care about the dead. Tell me about your burial customs, Sarah said quietly. Tell me everything. Veskra's eyes widened. Hope flickered across her face, fragile as candlelight. You'll help? I'll try, Sarah said. She didn't know how yet. She didn't know if it was even possible. But she knew she had to try. Veskra started talking. She described the burial rites of her people, the prayers and ceremonies, the way bodies were laid in stone chambers under open sky. Sarah listened carefully, recording everything on her tablet. When Veskra finished, Sarah stood. I need to make some calls. Can you stay here with him a little longer? Veskra nodded. She returned to her brother's side, beginning to sing softly in her own language. A morning song, ancient and beautiful. Sarah left the room and headed to her office. She locked the door and pulled up her secure communication terminal. She typed a message to Earth, marking it urgent. She didn't contact Medical Command. She contacted someone else, someone who might understand. The message was simple. Need terraform pod. 1 unit, coordinates attached. This is important. Trust me. She hit send and sat back in her chair. The response time from Earth was 3 weeks minimum. She would have to keep Theron's body preserved that long. She would have to fight Station Command, break regulations, and probably destroy her career. Sarah looked at her hands. They were steady. Sometimes being human meant doing the impossible for someone who needed help, even if that someone was already dead. Sarah stared at the medical stasis unit holding Theron's body. She had been staring at it for 3 days now, waiting for everything to fall apart. So far, she had managed to keep things together, but it was getting harder. The stasis field kept Theron's body perfectly preserved. Sarah had filed the paperwork under continued study of unknown disease progression. It was technically legal, barely, but everyone on the station knew what she was really doing. She was buying time. In her small quarters, Sarah pulled up every file she could find on Drakari culture and burial practices. She read late into the night, learning about a species she had only known from medical textbooks. The Drakari believed that the body and spirit were connected to their homeworld through stone and sky. When they died, they needed to be returned to Earth and open air, or their spirits would be lost forever, wandering in darkness. It was beautiful. It was also completely impossible on a space station. Sarah rubbed her tired eyes. A notification blinked on her screen. She had a message from her mother back on Earth. Sarah almost deleted it without reading like she did most personal messages, but something made her open it. It was a photo. Sarah's brother David grinning at the camera, holding a baseball bat. He had been 12 in that picture. 1 year before the cancer, 2 years before he died. Sarah closed her eyes. She remembered the hospital. She remembered her parents telling her to stay home, that David needed to rest, that she could visit tomorrow. Tomorrow never came. By the time they called her, David was gone. She never got to say goodbye. Never got to be there when he needed her. She had been angry for years. Angry at her parents. Angry at the doctors. Angry at herself for not fighting harder to be there. That anger had pushed her into medicine, driven her to the far edges of human space, searching for something she couldn't name. Maybe it was redemption. Maybe it was just trying to make sure no one else felt that helpless. A knock on her door pulled her from her thoughts. Sarah opened it to find Marcus, one of the station's human engineers. He was a big man with graying hair and kind eyes. Heard you might need some help, he said simply. Help with what? Sarah asked carefully. You never knew who might be listening. Marcus smiled. Heard the incinerator's been acting up. Might need some maintenance. Could take weeks to fix properly. Real thorough work. Sarah felt relief wash through her. If the incinerator was down for maintenance, they couldn't destroy Theron's body. It bought her more time. Thank you. We look after our own, Marcus said. And anyone our own decides to look after. That's the human way. Over the next few days, more humans on the station found quiet ways to help. Nurse Thompson handled the paperwork, making sure everything was filed correctly to avoid immediate flags. Lieutenant Rodriguez from security made sure the morgue area had extra patrols that somehow always kept other people away. Even Dr. Okonkwo, the chief medical officer and Sarah's boss, looked the other way when certain regulations got bent. But on day 7, Sarah's luck ran out. Commander Erix summoned her to his office. The Centaurian station commander was known for following every rule exactly. His species believed in order and proper procedure above all else. His 4 eyes fixed on Sarah as she entered. "Dr. Chen," he said, his translator making his voice sound mechanical. "I am aware you are holding a Cascade Syndrome victim in medical stasis. This violates protocol. The body must be released for immediate disposal." "I'm conducting important research," Sarah said. "The disease progression—" "The patient is deceased," Erix interrupted. "There is no more progression to study. I have received 3 formal complaints from the Drakari High Command, demanding proper disposal. I have delayed as much as I can. The body must be incinerated within 24 hours. Sarah's mind raced. "Commander, please." "The boy's sister is an outcast who has no legal standing," Erix said, but his voice was not unkind. "Dr. Chen, I understand humans have strong emotions about death. But this is not Earth. This is a multi-species station with rules that keep us all safe. I cannot make exceptions no matter how sympathetic the situation." Sarah stood. She looked the commander in the eyes. "What if I refuse?" Erix's antennae drooped. "Then I will have security remove the body by force, and you will face disciplinary action." "Please do not make me do this." Sarah returned to the medical bay feeling defeated. She found Veskra sitting near the stasis unit as she did every day. The girl looked up hopefully. "Did you find a way?" she asked. Sarah sat down beside her. "I'm sorry, I tried. But the station commander won't bend the rules." Veskra's shoulders slumped. "I understand. You did more than anyone else would have. Thank you for trying." "Tell me more about Theron," Sarah said quietly. "What was he like?" Veskra's eyes brightened a little. "He wanted to be a pilot. He used to watch the ships come and go from our homeworld spaceport. He would make up stories about where they were going, what adventures they were having. He always said that someday he would fly among the stars. He made it to the stars," Sarah pointed out. "Not the way he dreamed," Veskra said sadly. "He wanted to explore, to see new worlds. Instead he saw only hospital rooms." She paused. "But he was kind. Even when he was sick, even when he was in pain, he always asked how I was doing. He told jokes to make the nurses smile. He said that if he had to be sick, at least he could try not to make everyone around him sad." Sarah listened to Veskra talk about her brother, about his favorite foods, his terrible singing voice, his love of old stories. With every word, Theron became more real. Not just a patient, not just a body, but a person, someone who had lived and dreamed and mattered. They sat together in silence for a while. Then Sarah heard footsteps. She turned to see High Physician Corvus, one of the senior Drakari doctors on the station. He was old, his scales dull with age. He had refused to treat Theron, had publicly condemned Veskra for her defiance. "You need to leave," Sarah said, standing to block his view of Veskra. "You've done enough damage." Corvus looked at her with ancient, tired eyes. "I came to tell you that the disposal unit has been repaired. The Drakari High Command insists the body be destroyed tonight. I am here to oversee the transfer." Veskra stood up, her small hands clenched into fists. "No, I won't let you burn him like trash. I won't." "You have no choice, child," Corvus said, but his voice wavered. "There's always a choice," Sarah said. She didn't know what she was going to do, but she knew she couldn't let this happen. Commander Erix said 24 hours. "We still have 16 hours left." "And what will you do with 16 hours?" Corvus asked. "I don't know yet," Sarah admitted, "but I'm not giving up." Corvus studied her for a long moment. "You humans are foolish. You fight battles you cannot win. You care about things that do not matter." "To us, everything matters," Sarah replied, "especially the things that seem small to everyone else." The old Drakari physician turned to leave, then stopped. "I had a brother once," he said quietly.
He died of Cascade Syndrome when we were young.
"I followed the law. I kept my distance. I let them burn him without ceremony. I have regretted it every single day for 70 years. He looked back at Veskra. I was wrong to abandon you. I was wrong to abandon him. I am sorry. Then he left. Sarah and Veskra stood in stunned silence. Finally, Sarah's communicator beeped. A message from Earth. Her heart pounded as she opened it. It wasn't from Medical Command. The sender was listed as Terraform Corps, Earth Special Operations. The message was short. Package en route. ETA, 72 hours. Don't give up. Humanity remembers. Sarah started laughing. She couldn't help it. Veskra looked at her in confusion. What is it? The girl asked. Sarah smiled, tears running down her face. Hope, it's hope. The human transport ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a flash that lit up the observation windows across the station. It was a military vessel marked with Earth's insignia. Sarah watched from the docking control room as it maneuvered into position. Her hands were shaking. What exactly is in that ship? Commander Irix asked. He stood beside her, all four of his eyes focused on the massive cargo pod being carefully guided into the largest docking bay. Hope, Sarah said simply. That is not an answer. Dr. Chen. The docking bay doors opened. Sarah, Veskra, Marcus, and a growing crowd of curious station personnel watched as the cargo pod settled onto the deck. It was huge, easily the size of a small building. The transport ship's captain, a stern-looking woman named Rodriguez, stepped out first. Special delivery for Dr. Sarah Chen, she announced. Sign here, please. Sarah signed the digital pad, her mind reeling. She had asked for help. She hadn't expected this. The cargo pod's doors opened with a hiss of hydraulics. Inside, bathed in blue preservation light, was something impossible. Enormous slabs of gray stone neatly stacked and labeled. Atmospheric generators, compact but powerful. Sealed containers marked soil, various Earth regions. Equipment for creating gravity fields. And in a small temperature-controlled chamber, a young cherry tree, its branches carefully wrapped. 50 tons of granite from the Rocky Mountains. Captain Rodriguez read from her manifest. Atmospheric generators rated for 0.3 cubic kilometers. Soil samples from 7 continents. 1 cherry tree, Yoshino variety. And installation equipment, she looked up. Someone really wanted this delivered. Commander Irix's antennae were vibrating with what Sarah had learned to recognize as extreme agitation. This is insane. Do you understand the cost of transporting this much mass through FTL? The energy expenditure alone could power the station for a month. Marcus, standing nearby, shrugged. Yeah, we figured it was worth it. Worth it? Irix turned to Sarah. Dr. Chen, explain yourself. What is the meaning of this? Sarah looked at Veskra. The young Drakari girl was staring at the cargo with wide eyes, tears streaming down her scaled cheeks. Commander, Sarah said quietly, we're going to build a grave. The next 12 hours were chaos. Word spread through the station like wildfire. The humans were building something in Docking Bay 7. Everyone wanted to see. Marcus and his engineering team worked with fierce efficiency. They had done this before, Sarah realized. Terraform pods were used to create habitable spaces on dead worlds. This was just a smaller version. They set up the gravity generators first, creating Earth-normal gravity in a section of the bay. Then the atmospheric processors, slowly filling the space with breathable air that matched Earth's composition. The stone came next. Marcus showed Sarah the plan. They would create a chamber, walls of solid granite open to the artificial sky above, real Earth stone, cold and permanent. The floor would be covered in soil, deep enough to plant the tree. Other humans on the station came to help. Off-duty personnel, scientists, even the ship's crew who had delivered the pod. They worked together, moving stone, adjusting equipment, creating something that shouldn't exist on a space station. Species from across the station came to watch. A group of Centaurians stood at the observation window, their antennae quivering as they tried to understand. Several insectoid wrecks clustered together, chittering in their musical language. Even a few younger Drakari arrived, though they kept their distance, watching in silence. They're building a tomb, someone whispered. For one person. Another voice added, awed, all of this for one dead boy. Sarah heard the whispers but didn't respond. She was busy helping Veskra understand the design. The girl had to approve. This was for her brother. The stone will keep him safe, Sarah explained. The soil will let the tree grow. The tree will bloom every spring. Artificial seasons here on the station. And the sky above will be open, so his spirit can see the stars. It's not our sky, Veskra said softly. It's not our stone. No, Sarah agreed. But it's real, and it's given with love. Sometimes that's enough. High Physician Corvus appeared at the edge of the workspace. He stood there for a long time, just watching. Finally, he approached Sarah. The High Command has sent me to stop this, he said. Sarah straightened, ready to fight. You can try. I'm not going to stop it, Corvus continued. I am going to help. He pulled out a data pad. These are the proper Drakari burial rites. The prayers, the positioning of the body, the traditional markers. If you are going to do this, do it correctly. Sarah took the data pad, surprised. Thank you. Do not thank me. I am simply trying to balance the scales of my own failure. Corvus looked at the granite chamber taking shape. Your species is strange, Dr. Chen. You are new to the stars, barely 80 years since first contact. You are small in numbers, limited in resources. Yet you do things like this. Why? Sarah thought about her answer carefully. On Earth, we learned something a long time ago. We learned that how we treat the dead says everything about how we value the living. Every person matters. Every life, no matter how short, deserves to be remembered with honor. Even at great cost, especially at great cost. That's what makes it meaningful. Corvus was silent for a moment. The Drakari forgot this. We became afraid of death, so we pushed it away. We made it shameful. We forgot that our dead were once our loved ones. He looked at Veskra, who was carefully arranging small stones near where her brother would rest. Perhaps it is time we remembered. The chamber was completed in 18 hours. It was beautiful. The granite walls rose up, precisely fitted, creating a space that felt both ancient and eternal. The soil was dark and rich, earth soil mixed with minerals that would help the tree grow. The atmospheric processors hummed quietly, maintaining perfect conditions. At the center, they had prepared the resting place, a bed of smooth stone, carefully shaped according to Drakari tradition. Above it, space for the cherry tree to be planted. Sarah had them bring Theron's body from the stasis unit. They had prepared him according to the instructions Corvus provided, dressing him in traditional wrappings, positioning him properly. Veskra walked beside the floating gurney, her hand on her brother's arm. The ceremony was scheduled for midnight station time. Sarah had expected just a few humans to attend. She was wrong. The observation area around Docking Bay 7 was packed. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species had come to witness this impossible thing. The humans building a grave. The Drakari girl saying goodbye to her brother. Veskra stood at the entrance to the burial chamber looking small and scared. Corvus stood beside her in traditional burial vestments. He began to chant in the ancient Drakari language, his voice carrying through the chamber. The ceremony was simple but profound. They laid Theron in his resting place, his body positioned to face the artificial sky. Veskra placed traditional offerings around him, stones from their homeworld that she had carried with her. She spoke the prayers, her young voice clear and strong. Sarah and Marcus carefully lowered the cherry tree into the soil above Theron's grave. Its roots would grow down, anchoring in the earth, creating a living memorial. Veskra spoke the final prayer. To stone and sky until the stars go dark. You are not forgotten, my brother. You will never be forgotten. The chamber fell silent. Then one by one, beings from different species began to bow or salute or make their own signs of respect. The gesture spread through the crowd. Hundreds of different species in their own ways, honoring the death of one young Drakari boy. Sarah saw Commander Erix in the crowd. The Centaurian commander's antennae were raised in the position that indicated deep respect. He met Sarah's eyes and nodded once. Later, after the ceremony ended and the crowd dispersed, Sarah found Veskra sitting beside the cherry tree. The girl was crying, but she was smiling too. Thank you, Veskra whispered. Thank you for helping me remember him the right way. Sarah sat beside her. Your brother flew among the stars after all. Maybe not the way he planned, but he made it here, and now he'll rest under the stars forever. Do you think other species will do this now? Veskra asked. Build places to remember their dead? Sarah looked at the granite chamber, at the tree that would bloom in artificial spring, at the impossible grave that humans had built because one girl asked for help. I think, Sarah said slowly, that sometimes one act of kindness can change how everyone thinks. Your brother's death meant something. His burial meant something. People watched us honor him, and maybe they remembered why honoring the dead matters. The humans taught us to remember, Veskra said. No, Sarah corrected gently. We just reminded you. You already knew. You never stopped knowing. You just needed someone to show you it was okay to care again. They sat together in the quiet, watching the cherry tree's branches sway in the gentle artificial breeze. Above them, through the chamber's transparent ceiling, the stars burned eternal and bright. 3 months after the burial, Sarah stood in front of the Galactic Medical Council, waiting to learn if her career was over. The council chamber was enormous, designed to accommodate representatives from 40 different species. Sarah felt very small standing at the central podium. Behind her sat 3 human representatives from Earth's medical authority, looking worried. Across the chamber, the prosecution table held 5 stern-faced officials who had spent the last 2 hours listing Sarah's violations. The charges were serious. Violation of quarantine protocols, misuse of station resources, unauthorized disposal of biological hazard materials, cultural interference with a registered species. And the newest charge just added this morning, reckless endangerment through creation of unauthorized biological containment. The penalty for all of this, taken together, was permanent revocation of her medical license and possible criminal prosecution. Sarah had expected this. From the moment she decided to help Veskra, she had known the consequences might destroy her career. She had done it anyway. The lead prosecutor, a Centaurian named Velkoth, was finishing his closing statement. The defendant's actions, while perhaps well-intentioned, set a dangerous precedent. If every doctor can simply ignore protocols when they feel emotional sympathy, our entire system of interspecies medical safety collapses. Dr. Chen spent resources equivalent to a small warship's construction cost to bury one individual. This is not compassion. This is irresponsible waste. Velkoth sat down looking satisfied. Sarah's attorney, a human woman named Patricia Walsh, stood to present the defense. But before she could speak, a door at the back of the chamber opened. Veskra walked in. The young Drakari girl had grown in 3 months. She stood taller, her scales brighter. She wore a student's uniform from the station's medical training program. Behind her walked High Physician Corvus and, surprisingly, 3 other senior Drakari physicians. I request permission to address the council, Veskra said. Her voice was steady, but Sarah could see her hands trembling. The council chair, an ancient being from a species Sarah didn't recognize, considered this. The defendant's character witnesses were heard yesterday. We do not typically— I am not here as a character witness, Veskra interrupted. I am here as evidence of what Dr. Chen's actions have changed. The chair gestured for her to continue. Veskra walked to the center of the chamber. 3 months ago, my brother died. I begged Dr. Chen to help me bury him with honor. She broke your rules to help me. You say this was irresponsible. I say it was the most responsible thing anyone has ever done. She pulled up a holographic display. Images filled the air above her. Since my brother's burial, 17 different species have submitted formal requests to create memorial spaces on their home stations. 43 families have contacted Earth's Terraform Corps, asking for help with burial sites. The Drakari High Command has begun discussing reform of our death rituals for the first time in 300 years. More images appeared. Memorial gardens on different stations. Families gathered around graves. Species that had never honored their dead before creating their own traditions. Dr. Chen didn't just help me bury my brother, Veskra continued. She reminded the entire galaxy that the dead matter, that how we treat them reflects who we are. You call this irresponsible. I call it revolutionary. Velkoth stood up. This is irrelevant emotional manipulation. The defendant broke serious protocols. To save my brother's spirit. Veskra's voice rang out strong. In my culture, to die without proper burial is to be lost forever. Dr. Chen understood this. She understood that some things are more important than rules. The chamber erupted in murmurs. The council chair called for order. High Physician Corvus stepped forward. If I may address the council. He waited for permission, then continued. I was one of the physicians who filed complaints against Dr. Chen. I demanded she be punished. I was wrong. The murmurs grew louder. Corvus raised his voice. For 70 years I have regretted following our laws about the marked dead. I abandoned my own brother. I told myself I was being responsible, following proper procedure. But I was just being afraid. Dr. Chen showed me that sometimes the responsible choice is to break the rules that have become unjust. One of the council members, a Vrex with compound eyes, spoke up. This is all very moving, but it does not address the safety concerns. Cascade syndrome is highly dangerous. Dr. Chen followed proper containment procedures. Patricia Walsh interjected, pulling up medical records. The burial chamber is a sealed environment. Regular monitoring shows zero contamination. The safety protocols were actually stricter than standard disposal procedures. But the cost, Velkoth started. The cost was paid willingly by Earth. A new voice interrupted. A human man in military uniform stood up from the observation gallery. Admiral Chen, Terraform Corps. I authorized the shipment. I'd do it again, Sarah blinked. Admiral Chen? The name was just coincidence, wasn't it? The Admiral continued. Dr. Chen's request came through unofficial channels. It reached my desk because my aide thought I should see it. The request was simple. Help a grieving child bury her brother. The cost analysis was irrelevant. This is what humans do. We honor the dead. We help those who grieve. We don't calculate if it's economically efficient. He looked directly at the council. You want to punish Dr. Chen for being human? For showing compassion? Then you're punishing the wrong thing. Humanity learned a long time ago that civilization isn't measured by how efficiently we dispose of the dead. It's measured by how we honor them. The chamber fell silent. The council members consulted among themselves in hushed tones. Sarah stood at the podium, her heart pounding. She had no idea if any of this would help. Finally, the council chair spoke. This council will recess for deliberation. We will reconvene in 1 hour. The longest hour of Sarah's life passed in a blur. Patricia Walsh tried to be encouraging, but Sarah could see the worry in her eyes. Veskra sat beside her, holding her hand. Whatever happens, Veskra said quietly, you gave my brother a proper burial. You gave me peace. Nothing they decide can take that away. When the council reconvened, the chamber was even more packed than before. Word had spread. Everyone wanted to see the verdict. The council chair stood. This council has reviewed all evidence and testimony. We find the defendant, Dr. Sarah Chen, guilty of protocol violations as charged. Sarah's stomach dropped. She had expected this, but hearing it still hurt. However, the chair continued, we also find that the defendant acted with proper medical judgment regarding safety protocols. The burial chamber poses no contamination risk. The cultural interference charge is dismissed, as the defendant was responding to a direct request from a patient's family member. Hope flickered in Sarah's chest. Regarding the misuse of resources, we note that all materials were provided voluntarily by Earth and involved no station resources beyond minimal space allocation. This charge is also dismissed. The chair paused. Dr. Chen, you broke rules that existed for good reasons. You prioritized individual compassion over systemic efficiency. In doing so, you have created significant complications for multi-species medical administration. Sarah braced for the final blow. You have also, the chair said, and Sarah could swear there was warmth in the alien voice, reminded us why we created those systems in the first place, to care for the living and honor the dead. Your actions, while technically in violation of protocol, served the deeper purpose of medicine, to heal not just bodies but hearts. The chair looked around the chamber. This council hereby establishes the Chen provision. When culturally significant death rituals can be accommodated without compromising safety, they should be. Medical facilities are encouraged to work with families to honor the deceased according to their traditions. Dr. Sarah Chen is found guilty of minor protocol violations and is issued a formal reprimand. No further penalties will be assessed. The chamber exploded with noise. Sarah stood frozen, unable to process what she had just heard. Not guilty. Well, technically guilty, but with no real punishment. And they had created a new protocol named after her. Veskra was hugging her, crying and laughing at the same time. Patricia Walsh was shaking her hand, grinning broadly. Even the Admiral gave her a sharp nod of approval. As Sarah left the council chamber, reporters from dozens of news services swarmed her. She pushed through them, exhausted and overwhelmed. She just wanted to go back to the station, back to her quiet work. A message was waiting in her quarters when she finally made it back. The sender was listed as Drakari Homeworld Office of Cultural Affairs. Sarah opened it, curious. It was an invitation. The Drakari government wanted her to visit their homeworld. They wanted to discuss creating memorial spaces, They wanted her help to change 300 years of tradition. Sarah sat down heavily on her bed. She had just wanted to help one girl bury her brother. Somehow that one act had started something much bigger. She looked at the invitation for a long time. Then she started composing her reply. I would be honored. The Drakari homeworld was beautiful and terrible. Sarah stood at the observation window of the shuttle, watching as they descended through layers of red and gold clouds. Below, mountain ranges stretched across continents, their peaks piercing the sky. The Drakari had evolved in those mountains, building their cities into the living rock itself. Veskra sat beside her, pressed against the window like a child, which Sarah reminded herself she still was. 18 months had passed since Theron's burial. Veskra was now 14 cycles old, studying medicine with fierce dedication. She had begged to come on this trip, and Sarah hadn't been able to refuse. I haven't been home since we left for the station, Veskra said quietly. I'm not sure I'm welcome anymore. You're with me, Sarah replied. The invitation came from your government. They want to talk about change. The shuttle landed at the capital city, carved into the side of a massive mountain. Sarah had expected a formal reception. Instead, a small group waited on the landing pad. Older Drakari, their scales dulled with age, wearing simple robes. One of them stepped forward. Dr. Chen, thank you for coming. I am Elder Thros, speaker for the Council of Memory. Council of Memory? Sarah asked. A new council formed 3 months ago, Thros explained. We are tasked with addressing how our people remember and honor the dead. It is long overdue. He turned to Veskra. Young one, you are welcome here. What was done to you and your brother was wrong. The council acknowledges this. Veskra's eyes filled with tears. She bowed deeply, unable to speak. They were taken through the city, deep into the mountain. Sarah expected meeting rooms, government offices. Instead, they descended through ancient tunnels, going deeper and deeper. The air grew cooler. The light dimmed. Finally, they emerged into a massive cavern. Sarah stopped, unable to process what she was seeing. The cavern stretched beyond sight, its ceiling lost in darkness above. And everywhere, there were bodies, thousands of them, tens of thousands, laid out in rows, wrapped in simple cloth, decaying in the cold, dry air. No markers, no names, no indication of who they had been. The cavern of forgetting, Thros said quietly. For 300 years, every Drakari who died of Cascade Syndrome was brought here. Disposed of. Erased from memory. His voice cracked. This is our shame. Sarah felt sick. She had known the Drakari had strict protocols about the marked dead, but this was horror. These weren't just bodies. These were people, children, families, all forgotten. My brother is here somewhere, Veskra whispered. Our parents brought him here when I was too young to remember. They never told me where he was buried, because he wasn't buried. He was just thrown away. Not your brother, Sarah said gently. You buried Theron. He has a grave and a tree and he's remembered. But all these others... Veskra looked around the cavern, her face twisted with grief. Thros stepped forward. This is why we asked you to come, Dr. Chen. We cannot undo what was done. We cannot bring these people back. But we can try to remember them. We want to create a memorial, not just for the dead, but for the living who lost them. We want families to be able to come here to mourn, to remember, but we do not know how. Sarah walked further into the cavern. Her footsteps echoed in the vast space. She thought about the granite chamber on the station. She thought about the cherry tree. She thought about her brother David, whose ashes still sat in an urn because Sarah had never found the right place to let him go. You can't terraform this, she said finally. It's too big, and the Drakari can't afford what Earth spent on Theron's burial. You need something different. Yes, Thros agreed. We have limited resources. But we have many who want to help. Our young people especially. They are angry about what was done. They want to make it right. An idea formed in Sarah's mind. She knelt down, touching the cavern floor. Stone, cold and dark. What grows in darkness? She asked. Fungi, Veskra said immediately. Medical training had taught her about different biologies. Bioluminescent fungi. They grow in deep caves on our world. They feed on stone and dead matter. Sarah looked up at the Drakari elders. What if you turned this cavern into a garden? Not with plants from Earth, but with your own biology. Bioluminescent fungi that would grow here in the dark, feeding on the stone. Each family could come and plant fungi for their lost ones. Different colors for different people. Over time, this cavern would fill with light, a constellation of remembrance. Thross's eyes widened. The fungi could be cultivated. We have the technology. Each color could be gene-modified to represent different attributes. Gold for hope, blue for wisdom, red for courage, and families could tend them, another elder added. Come regularly to maintain the gardens. Share stories. The cavern would become a living memorial. It would be beautiful, Veskra breathed. Over the next week, Sarah worked with Drakari scientists and cultural experts. They designed the memorial garden, planned the fungi cultivation, created protocols for families to participate. The work was challenging but deeply moving. Sarah watched as the Drakari people, young and old, threw themselves into the project with fierce dedication. This mattered to them. They had been carrying guilt and grief for generations. Finally, they had a way to address it. The first planting ceremony was scheduled for the following month. Sarah planned to return to the station before then, but Veskra asked her to stay. Please, the young Drakari said, I want you to be there when I plant for my other brother, the one I never knew. Sarah stayed. The day of the ceremony, thousands of Drakari gathered at the cavern entrance. Families who had lost loved ones to Cascade Syndrome, young people who wanted to help, government officials acknowledging their failure. Even the high command sent representatives. Sarah stood at the back, trying not to draw attention. This was a Drakari moment, not a human one, but Elder Thross found her and pulled her forward. You should be here, he said simply. This started because you showed us it was possible to care. The ceremony began. One by one, families entered the cavern carrying small containers of cultivated fungi. They found spaces for their loved ones, speaking names that hadn't been said in years, telling stories that had been suppressed. They planted the fungi carefully according to instructions the scientists had provided. And slowly the fungi began to glow. Blue lights first, scattered across the cavern floor. Then gold, then red and green and purple. Each family adding their light to the growing constellation. The darkness filled with soft, gentle illumination. Sarah watched Veskra plant gold fungi for the brother she had never known. The girl knelt on the stone floor, speaking softly to a memory. Around her, other families did the same. Grief shared became grief lessened. Old physician Corvus planted blue fungi, tears streaming down his aged face. I remember you, Kelth, he said to his long-dead brother. I'm sorry I forgot. I'm sorry I let fear make me cruel. You are remembered now. You will always be remembered. The ceremony lasted for hours. By the end, the cavern of forgetting had transformed. Thousands of points of light glowed in the darkness, like stars brought down from the sky. It was breathtaking. Sarah found herself crying. She didn't fully understand why. Maybe it was the beauty. Maybe it was the release of generations of suppressed grief. Maybe it was just that finally all these forgotten people had become remembered again. Later, after most of the crowd had left, Veskra found Sarah standing at the cavern entrance, looking out at the sea of lights. Thank you, Veskra said. For everything. I just suggested fungi, Sarah replied, wiping her eyes. Your people did this. No, Veskra said firmly. You showed us it was okay to care about the dead. Before Theron's burial, we were afraid. Afraid to mourn, afraid to remember, afraid to seem weak. But you humans aren't afraid of grief. You embrace it. You honor it. You taught us that remembering the dead doesn't make us weak. It makes us whole. Sarah put her arm around the girl's shoulders. They stood together watching the lights. What happens now? Veskra asked. Now this spreads, Sarah said. Other species saw what we did for Theron. They're watching what the Drakari are doing here. Some will follow. Some won't. But the idea's out there now. That the dead matter. That grief is natural. That remembering is important. Humans taught the galaxy to remember, Veskra said. Maybe, Sarah allowed. Or maybe we just reminded everyone of something they already knew but had forgotten. Either way, it's a start. They returned to the station a week later. Sarah went back to her normal work, treating patients, running the xenobiology ward. But things had changed. She noticed small memorials appearing throughout the station. A Centaurian family had created a memory wall for their deceased child. A group of Rex had started a tradition of speaking the names of their dead at weekly gatherings. Even the rigid station protocols had been modified to allow for more cultural death practices. One day, Sarah received a package from Earth. Inside was a small metal container. A note from her mother was attached. You helped that alien girl find peace with her brother. Maybe it's time you found peace with yours. David would want you to let him go. Sarah looked at the container for a long time. Then she went to the burial chamber, to Theron's grave where the cherry tree was blooming with impossible pink flowers.